Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Life at the Lake Campus podcast. My name is Josh Ricker, and today with me I have somebody who, if you've been at Lake Campus long enough, needs zero introduction, but Mr. Kip Wright. Kip, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Proud to be here.
So usually I try to find some kind of introduction to give somebody, but there's so much we could possibly say about you. I'm just going to let you kind of completely take the reins here. So would you mind kind of introducing yourself to those who don't know who you are? Let us know who you are, where you're from, kind of what brought you here.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you for having me. My name is Kip Wright, born and reared in Mercer County, Salina, Ohio. My parents were Ted and Dorothy Wright. I'm the oldest of 5 children. Back in high school, there were 2 C's, words that started with C's, that we were kind of fearful of back then, Josh. One was cancer. If someone was diagnosed with cancer, it was pretty much of a death knell back then. And the other word was college. Probably when we graduated in 1968 with a class of about 186 students, perhaps 10% were college bound. College was kind of a scary word back then. But as time went on, more of us went to college, some of us midlife. I'm known as a non-traditional student. I started college uptown in Salina before there was a Wright State University at the Western Ohio Education Foundation. It started in 1962. My wife Mary and I graduated from Salina in 1968. Married, had 2 children. Our son took classes out here. Our daughter took classes out here. And it's impacted our career immensely. But I can remember it was around 1968. We were affiliated, I think, with Ohio Northern at the time. Western Ohio Education Foundation was. But I can remember someone coming into the class and announcing that there was this upstart new college or university down in the Dayton area, and that we may throw our affiliation in with them. And it was Roger Stauffer was the executive director of the Western Ohio Education Foundation. He looked at me and said, "Kip, you might like the name of this new college. It's called Wright State." So I've always been kind of proud that they named the place after me. Not really. But yes, and it took me, being a non-traditional student, it took me about 20-some years to achieve my associate's degree, because what we had out here then was somewhat limited. We had a lot of what we call certification programs, where you could take classes and be certified in various occupations. Then they started what they called the associate degree programs. And the associate degree you could take 2-3 years, but I found out I was typical of a lot of my classmates. A lot of us were working full-time somewhere else, rearing families, and we couldn't take full courses. So it might take us 4 or 5 years to get an associate's degree. And there were a limited number then of bachelor's degrees at the time. I can remember mental health was one, but we would have to finish by commuting down to Dayton. We didn't have all the technology back then that we do today, doing classes online. They were actual classes. So I have a history of beginning with Wright State in 1968 and taking many, many years working full-time. My wife started in the field of education. In fact, she works now with Head Start and some other elementary programs as a assistant to a teacher's aide. She had not finished her bachelor's degree yet at this point. She still may. But I was able to earn my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree. Dr. Dan Evans was the dean out here at that point. And when he introduced me, when I received my bachelor's degree, I think in 2001. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to someone here." They asked me to kind of be the class spokesman. He said, "There's a gentleman here I want to introduce you to. A lot of you might know his name is Kip Wright. He's been going out here part-time, uptown and out here on our new campus for the better part of about 4 decades." And he said, "I'm here to tell you all, if we can educate Kip Wright in the matter of just 40 years, I think we can educate anyone." Mr. Evans was a good friend of mine. We worked at a lot of organizations together. And I've been fortunate throughout my career, Josh, that whoever I worked for, whether it be appointed or elected official, my background is in criminal justice. I started out as a dispatcher jailer. I became a deputy sheriff. Then I became a detective on the sheriff's department. Then a position opened up over in Common Pleas Court, where I became an assistant adult probation officer. We did some parole work for the state. I was a court investigator, did that for about 14 years. Then a position opened up over at the prosecutor's office as an investigator. Paul Howell was prosecutor at the time. Andy Henders, a friend of mine, was assistant prosecutor and wanted to know if I would be interested in a position as an investigator for the prosecutor's office, first one in Mercer County. And I took that position, and they also asked me to get a grant for victims assistance. So that was our first victims assistance position in the county. And after working with the prosecutor's office for about 4 or 5 years, the prosecutor and the sheriff got together, and sheriff wanted me back as a detective, but he didn't want me to give up my duties with the prosecutor's office as far as preparing cases for presentment to grand jury. So I became a law enforcement officer again with the sheriff's department, and continued my career after retirement. After 32 years, I was asked to come back to prosecutors again part-time. So I've had a great career, and I can lay it so much of this to what the Lake Campus has done, not just for me and my family, but I've worked with so many people in public service and in private service that got their beginnings out here. Maybe back then they were quarters. Maybe someone only took a quarter or two. And like I said, that word college that kind of frightened people in our time, they were able to overcome that. Because we had smaller classes out here, it was more personable. We could work in the community, go to school, work part-time. Many of our employers allowed us off for college and that. So me personally, and I can think of a lot of professional people, probably are proud to have been Wright State students and had that opportunity to go out here. Because I can remember when I needed a class or two to finish my associate's degree. Kip, are you willing to drive down to Dayton? I said, boy, I'd rather not. I work part-time, and I work full-time, and I've got a part-time job, I've got a family. And I think it was Dean Dan Evans that came to me and said, Kip, tell you what, make you a deal. He said, if you can get 8 to 12 students to sign up for this class, we will see if we can get a professor to come from Dayton to come up here 1 or 2 nights a week. And it worked. I'm not saying I'm the one that started that, but that concept began to grow, and we began having the professors come up here. And that made it much easier. Our classes began to grow. And as you know, since you've been here, going from associate's degree to bachelor's degrees, what do we have, 14, 15?
I can't even remember off the top of my head now.
Active bachelor's degrees now.
So we've got a lot. The reason I'm even here is because they opened up the psychology one. So
Exactly.
yeah, but what you just meant, one of the things you just mentioned, one of the aspects of this campus that keeps coming up is everybody loves how small our classes are and how just interpersonal everything is. We all know each other in terms of like faculty and students and intermixing. So it's really nice to hear that even when you were back here starting it up, it was still that same way.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about, you mentioned your multiple jobs in law enforcement, and you still keep coming out here regardless of all those. Well, you've retired 3 times at least?
3 or 4 times, yeah.
I always tell people when we talk about you, it's like, he's the busiest retired person I've ever met. So I don't know how you keep doing it all, but you come out now, for me, multiple times per year usually, because I teach a forensic psychology class. And usually come out and teach one class, just kind of giving my students an overview of how the system works, everything. But then you take us on the courthouse tours. So it's usually 2 days in a week. You take us around the courthouse for an hour, and we've sat in on different hearings. You let us meet the judges, and we get to talk about just various things with them. So could you maybe explain how you've gotten involved doing that kind of stuff? Like, when did you start giving the courthouse tours, and
Sure.
kind of what got you into that?
Right. I guess it started about 45 years ago. I was fortunate enough to work for Judge Dean James, Common Pleas Court judge. He was a former prosecutor, was elected judge, and at that time, our caseload began to expand with the courts, and occasionally I'd get to go up in the evenings and work on cases with the judge. And we'd either take our break or finish for the evening. He'd say, "Hey, Kip, you've heard the term stop and smell the roses?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you want to know a little bit about this courthouse?" I said, "Sure." And I called him Dean, but Judge Dean James would take me on tours of the courthouse, show me things, give me history and such. Then I became involved with Joyce Alleg, our historian in the county, and just began to gather a lot of knowledge and began giving back then courthouse tours to all 6 of the schools in Mercer County, everything from preschool all the way up to high school. And now we have college students coming out and viewing the courthouse.
I mean, it's one of their favorite days of the year for
Well,
that class. They always,
thank you.
I even have students they've been gone for a couple years now who always bring that up still. They said, "This is the best part of my forensic psych class," or some of them even say, "Best part of college."
And all due respect to college, and I mean it sincerely, the textbooks, the classroom, the instructors, it's all important. But I've had students, I had a former sociology instructor out here, Jim Steinberg, who retired several years ago, said, "Kip, I've been teaching some criminal history, sociology about the courts." And he said, "I'm sorry to say, this is the first time I've ever been in a courtroom." So when we have that ability, like I said, all due respect to the textbooks, the instructors, but when they can come hands-on and physically see the courts, and I can't get over how the judges, all 3 judges, municipal court, juvenile court, common pleas court, all 3 judges and their staffs are so amenable. They love seeing, whether it's a college student or a preschooler, to come in and see the courts. It creates a real good attitude with the system, a good attitude, hopefully, for the citizenry. These kids grow up. I've had adults come in. I remember the Heritage Club from St. Henry 2 years ago came in for a courthouse tour. And there was a fellow there who was about 24 years old. Said, "Kip, are you going to give us the story about the restrooms, the old crapper story?" I said, "Yeah." "Do you know that?" He said, "Yeah, I came through here in the 3rd grade." So
That's one of them that my students always bring up too. Like, they know now why it's called the crapper.
the crapper, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I liked, especially this year. I don't know why it really kind of stuck with you. Every time we get to sit, I don't know if interview is the right word, but my students get the opportunity to just kind of talk with the judges, like one-on-one. But Matt Fox talked with us this year, and we got back to classroom the next class period, and they said they loved being able to ask the questions. They thought he was very respectful in how he answered things. They were really just intrigued in getting his view on how different things in society were working. So it was really cool that they're able to do something like that and so passionately for us.
Judge Fox, Judge Gilmore, Judge Kathy Spielman, Municipal Court. It's interesting because some of the students, adult students that come out and say, "Wow, they act like they're almost human." I don't know why we hold, and we should. I know there's a holding our judiciary system up high, and that's great, but they're human beings, and they enjoy the questions that your class proposes to. So, yeah.
But I think it's great because, I mean, forensic psychology, we're mixing law and psychology, so half of that I haven't been studious in by any means, but I do like the point that you make about getting that hands-on experience, because there are just some things that it's once they're in the courtroom and they see how things are set up and the interactions between the judge and the attorneys and whoever might be on trial, it makes it so much easier than to explain. It seems to kind of click with them. So then the rest of the semester we can refer back to, remember in the court visit when you saw this instead of that, and kind of talk about it that way. So it gives you all angles of the experience.
Vocabulary words, initial appearance, arraignment. These are things we read in newspaper or might see on TV. But when you explain these to them, then a pre-sentence investigation has to be done. And that's where we need more people with the background, whether it be psychology, forensics, or whatever it might be, social studies, that can work for the court system, knowing how to prepare pre-sentence investigations for the judges, all kinds of work that's available out there, especially now. It's no secret that many staffs are short personnel right now. So to introduce that to your students and let them know, we've even been fortunate. We've had a couple students that have started new jobs with Job and Family Services, probation departments, that type of thing.
Say you came to me, earlier this year, the end of last year, I think, and said there's an opening. Do I have any students interested? And I gave you the name of one, and she was hired on within like a week, it seemed, like just that quickly. And we have one right now, an interview process. So
great.
Yeah, it's a nice little relationship we got going between campus and others in the system in Mercer County.
Sure.
So I'm gonna change gears a little bit just because I want to kind of ask you more about your relationship with Lake Campus because since I started here, I think it was 5.5 years ago now. You've been here just as much as it seems half the faculty and staff. Because we were just talking before we started this how we met doing the diversity committee picnic. We were without
Correct.
I think it was like 80 something degrees that day, and we were both over a hot grill, just dripping in sweat, and I was sunburnt like crazy by the end of the day. But you're constantly coming out and doing those types of events for campus. So, what drives you to do that? And like, kind of along those lines, do you feel like Lake Campus has given something special to you? Like, is that kind of what's driving you?
It has. It's helped me identify myself a little bit better and plainer. Um, Being out here and associating with young people helped me feel young. The older I get, the younger I act.
Yeah, I
my
feel like
wife
you
says.
act younger than I do.
Right, there you go. But yeah, that affiliation. And I'm so proud. Once I became an adult and realized the people who sat on the committees who started the Western Ohio Education Foundation and then the affiliation with Wright State University. And when I talk to parents and grandparents now who say going out to the Lake Campus is a proud thing to do, it's not as expensive as maybe others. I'll give you a short story. Our son, Jeff, he knew I was affiliated with Wright State for many, many years when he became an adult. He said, Dad, I want to take my first year out at the campus, and then I'm going to transfer to University of Cincinnati. I said, yeah. He said, well, I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything. I know you, back then it was called the branch campus. He said, around school, we don't call it the branch, we call it the twig. So he took his first year at the twig, transferred to University of Cincinnati. He came back about 8 or 9 years later after we'd had a bunch of a bachelor's degree. He came through, he said, my gosh, Dad, I can't believe the growth and the attitude of people out there at the campus. This is not even a branch anymore. He said, I'm sorry for my comment about the twig, but I am so proud of what's growing out there on campus. Our daughter took classes out here. And when I think of so many people I work with now that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, who probably wouldn't be in the position they were if they didn't come out here, even back in the 60s and such, when there weren't that many degrees, we had a lot of certification programs. But I work with a lot of probation officers now, people in different agencies, and not just Mercer County, but 5, 6 county areas, who said I probably wouldn't have gotten as far as I did if it weren't for me taking my first couple of classes out here at the campus. Because like I said, that C word was scary to people. College, ooh, man, yeah, it's expensive, and I don't think I'd make it through college. How many now out of a class of 186 are probably college bound?
Yeah.
70%, 10, 12% when I graduated from college. So that, another example, my wife and I are involved with the Perry Group, Public Employees Retirement System. Several years ago, invited Lynn Frank, to come out to give us a presentation on the nursing program. And as she was giving her presentation and such, one of the older people said, are you talking about Dayton? You say there's a nursing program out here at our campus in Salina? She said, yeah, we're about 2-3 years into it. Never knew that. And as she began to give her presentation, and she left later, she said, my gosh, can we go out and visit that nursing? We had no idea that the Lake Campus had a nursing program. And to not lay fault to anyone at all, sometimes this campus is the best kept secret in the area. I don't know why, it's always kind of been that way. So I'm hoping maybe now we can become more engaged, get the public more engaged with what's going on out here. And I've seen that already in the last several years, how the public is becoming more aware and proud of what we have here.
So we have a lot of stuff going on now. It just seems like every year is more and more. So I think it's great to see. But
Yeah.
all right, so one last little question for you. Given that you've had so much experience here with campus and tie-ins with the community, is there any message you want to give to our students out here?
Oh my. Just be proud of what you're doing. Work hard, that work ethic. Grades are important, but you still can't beat, and I know I've said this to your class several times, the personal contact. if you're looking at a career somewhere, try to get involved, whether it's an internship, a co-op, whether it's paid or unpaid work. Get involved with the system as soon as you can. My background, I've also been academy commander for the law enforcement academy out here. And it hurts my feelings at times when someone goes through the academy or 3/4 of the way through and they decide this isn't what they really wanted to do. So now we can find other areas for them to go into. But to me, it's a shame to have somebody go through a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. And even though it might have taken them 6 years to get the 2 years or 12 years to get the 4-year degree, to find out that it wasn't what I thought it was. And that's why I encourage everybody, try to get involved with the system that you're going to work on, whether it's private business, whether it's public, whatever it might be. And that's why I like helping, and I'm going to have a group of people help me even more, introduce many of your students, everybody else's students out here, to the area. I know Jared Ebbing's doing a great job introducing people to a lot of the private industry. I'd like to help invite people to attend the public agencies and such so they can get a taste or a flavor of what it really is and not be disappointed.
Sounds great. All right, well, I think that's all I have for you, Kip. Unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, other than I'm just going to mention vaguely right now, we are seriously considering and will be starting a Lake Campus Alumni Association again. We were very active up until about 4 or 5 years ago. Pre-COVID, some things happened, and then with COVID. But we're going to try to get interest again in the Lake Campus Alumni Association. I've recently been told that I will be sitting on the Board of Trustees in Dayton as a trustee for the association and be meeting here with the dean, staff, faculty, students to see what we can do about kicking off our Lake Campus Alumni Association again.
Man, that's exciting stuff. So, all right, well, Kip, I don't know if I've ever met anybody on campus who's always just as positive about everything as you are, and so exciting and passionate, and it's refreshing.
Well,
so
thank you.
Thank you very much for doing this with us today. We really do appreciate it. And so I always wrap these up by telling everybody, if there's anybody specific you want me to interview, let me know, and then I will talk to everybody in our next episode.